you get a buzz out of buying something? A little tingle of excitement. It feels good, doesn't it? That's your brain producing dopamine. It's the same rush you get from chocolate or sex. During lockdown, people were increasingly forced to rely on the internet to get their retail dopamine hits. In fact, over $4 trillion was spent buying stuff online in 2020, almost a third more than the year before. Shopping is going through a radical shift right now, and the pandemic has sped it up. Retailers have been forced to adapt and innovate. Driving this revolution, you. Or to be more specific, your data. Here's how. If you went shopping in the 16th century, you'd get personalised service.
So, for example, if you wanted to buy your suit of armour, you would go to an armourer who would knock it up to your specifications.
But bespoke services came with a premium price tag. Then came the Industrial Revolution, with its big factories, assembly lines, and automation. Mass production made goods cheaper, but a lot less personalised. And distribution was tricky. Products had to be taken from factories to what was essentially a small warehouse near where the customers lived. Basically, a shop.
The only way you could buy was through these shops, and you had very little choice, actually. You had very few shops near you, and if you wanted something, you had to go, and your choice was between one of those shops.
Fast forward to the advent of superstores and out-of-town malls, and these choices grew, but everything changed when the internet came along.
Suddenly, the shopper has more choice than ever, and it's really up to the producer and the retailer to offer the consumer what they want when they want it.
With more choice came more power for the consumer.
30 years ago, we in the brands used to define the brand ourselves and the product.
Glossy ads like these have pushed products to consumers for decades.
And the consumers used to, like so many Pavlov's dogs, they used to come and buy it.
But the internet has put consumers in the driving seat, calling the shots on what's cool and what's not, through reviews, social media posts, and influencers. Leading the way in this retail revolution is China. This is Gu Tian. She's a huge live streaming star.
And now I have 1.8 million followers on Red, and they're just like my best friend.
But unlike live streaming in the West, which is used mostly for entertainment or gaming, Gu Tian vlogs to flog, selling thousands of beauty products to her 1.8 million social media followers. She's one of thousands of influencers, also known as key opinion leaders.
Oh my God!
Selling anything from lipsticks to food and even plants. Live streaming selling has helped to make China the world leader in e-commerce. It's forecast that in 2021, half of everything bought in China will be bought online.
For Gen Z and millennial, like me, most of them prefer shopping online than going to a physical store because of larger range of choices and lower price.
The Chinese internet market is very, very highly developed. The scale of the market is over $2 trillion worth of consumption online. They have something called Singles Day, where they do billions of dollars worth of transactions in an hour.
3 huge companies dominate: Alibaba, JD.com, and Pinduoduo, which combined account for almost 80% of the market.
The other thing about the Chinese market that's very interesting is that whereas we have like Google in search and we have Facebook in social media, Amazon in e-commerce and PayPal in payments, they've put it all together in single organizations. So they have entire ecosystems, and many Chinese consumers live their entire lives in those ecosystems.
These super app ecosystems give the retailers intimate knowledge of exactly what their users like, want, and buy.
And of course, all of this requires a huge amount of data, and the Chinese are much more willing at this point to allow data tracking of everything that they do than many people are in the West.
With more direct insight into customer demands, retailers can maximise their margins and cut waste. Some Chinese tech firms are even using people's digital footprint to influence the way goods are produced, known as consumer to manufacturer.
That's really cutting out even the brands from the purpose. So the factories then start dealing directly with consumers and of course can be flexing their production capacity directly depending on the consumer demand.
Western retailers are playing catch-up. For years, they rested on their laurels, regarding the internet as secondary to the store. Not helped, perhaps, by the fact that they had sunk a lot of money into store space. America, for example, has 2.2 square meters of retail space for every single one of its inhabitants, 6 times the level of China. But Western retailers also missed a big trick: their customers' big data.
Retailers historically had very little data about their individual customers. They used to have store credit cards, that was about it. But the online companies had collected huge amounts of data about their customers. When you consider that against what the retailers had, the retailers and traditional brands were really flying blind. And that is why the internet companies have beaten the incumbent retailers and brands for the most part over the last 20 years.
The pandemic was a death knell for many brands. 8,700 stores were closed by big chain retailers in America in 2020. But the companies that did harness the power of their consumers' data are thriving. Amazon exceeded $100 billion in quarterly sales for the first time ever in the last 3 months of 2020.
Amazon, of course, wrote the book on individual customer data and its uses. And of course, as they've got bigger and bigger and bigger, they've got more data than anybody else.
With its established logistical system and smooth purchasing process, Amazon may seem a useful online platform for brands to peddle their wares. But though Amazon passes on the sale to the brand, it doesn't pass on much of the customer's data, which means companies know very little about who is buying their products. So some brands are cutting the Amazon cord to focus on what's known as direct-to-consumer selling, such as Nike.
It decided to sell only online via the Nike website. What it did then was it developed ways of keeping much closer tabs on its customers. For example, a membership program.
Nike's loyalty scheme allows it to create customer profiles of its 250 million members, 70 million of whom joined during the pandemic. Nike's apps offer the customer a personalised experience in return for a detailed insight into their behaviour.
If you sign up to their app, you'll give them information about how much you run every day, what sports clubs you're doing, how much yoga you're doing, all that sort of stuff. And this helps inform Nike about what to produce. They're able to see where you are, and that also informs the way they think about where to put their stores.
Nike's apps let users customise their own shoes, and in doing so learn the customer's favourite colours and designs. And by tracking how far they've run, can even let the customer know when it's time to splash out on a new pair of shoes.
You're sharing your data and your intimacy with Nike. It all basically creates a more intimate bond between Nike and its customers.
As shopping shifted online, the pandemic sparked a greater need for this type of direct-to-consumer selling. Enter Shopify, an e-commerce platform which allows anyone to set up their own online store. The number of new stores set up in the first 6 weeks of the pandemic grew by more than 60% compared to the previous 6 weeks.
We saw Heinz Ketchup within, I think, a week or two of COVID hitting, setting up a store on Shopify to sell Heinz at home in the UK. We saw Lindt chocolate go direct to consumer for the first time.
Inspired by the Chinese model, Shopify aims to create an ecosystem which integrates e-commerce with social media.
What we're trying to do is simplify all of it. We want to make it an easy thing to do to have one centralized inventory and figure out which products should get pushed where. And if you're seeing traffic at your online store coming from Pinterest, we're going to tell you should activate the Pinterest channel and you should push product directly to Pinterest to better engage with that audience. But I think we're just at the early stages of social commerce, and I think people are beginning to understand that there's a real opportunity here, not just to meet new brands, connect with new brands, but also to buy from those brands.
By being better connected to their customers, brands can work out not just what they want to buy, but where they want to shop. Take one of Shopify's merchants, the shoe company Allbirds. During the pandemic, when many brands were shutting up shop, Allbirds was opening stores.
You hear terms like, well, offline and online are competing and online is hurting offline. You would never hear that from Allbirds, because at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is create a great experience, build a great brand, and sell you great shoes. And however you purchase, whatever means or channels you utilize to do so, they're happy with. All those kind of feed into each other. The future of retail is retail everywhere. If you want to sell to my mom, you gotta have a great brick and mortar experience, because my mother prefers to buy that way. But my sister, who's in her early 20s, she is looking to purchase things on Instagram.
It means the store isn't dead. It would just be reimagined to provide an entirely new type of experience.
They're great for providing what we call brand theatre. They're great for providing a live experience with the customer, and to have expert stylist level staff who can really help the customer in a way that the internet cannot.
Nike has adapted its stores to create a bespoke service for the customer, thanks to the information on their digital profile. And the store presents yet another channel to capture their data.
In the midst of pandemic, it opened a huge store in Paris. You go in and immediately it offers you interactive experiences. It's mingling both online and offline data, and the whole point is to make the experience of shopping at Nike more intimate, more direct, and more kind of one-to-one.
In-store data can also help inform stock control, ensuring less waste in the supply chain, improving sustainability as well as profit margins. According to one recent estimate, the volume of data collected globally is expected to increase from 33 trillion gigabytes in 2018 to 175 trillion by 2025. This will be accompanied by rising concerns about privacy and exploitation of personal data.
It used to be the case that customers had to exhibit their loyalty to the store that they bought from. These days, it's the retailer that has to prove their loyalty to the shopper, and that loyalty really means looking after their data.
Retailers will know increasing amounts about customers' behaviour, habits, and preferences. This may sit uncomfortably with some, but one thing is for sure: the inevitability that this retail revolution will be driven by your data.
I'm Henry Triggs. I write the Schumpeter column at The Economist. You can read my special report on the future of shopping on the link opposite. Please don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.